So that's definitely a no-no. You don't want to do that. Do number 3, do show tangible appreciation to your spouse. Now, words are good and that's great, and you keep doing that, but don't stop giving them what they can see, feel, and touch. See, I'm saying that because really some folks can get caught up into a thing of, I don't have to prove anything. The person know I love them. I just tell them I love them. Okay, you keep saying all of that, but, continue doing that, but don't stop doing tangible things. In other words, gifts. Something to spend, depending on your situation. You might can't give $10,000 every month, but whatever. So don't stop the tangible thing. And that goes both ways. That's not just a husband. See, just because sure the wives can easily say, yeah, him buy me some. No, there are physical, tangible things the wife can do for him. So don't stop doing that. Okay. Also, to always know the status of your marriage. Always know, in other words, stay in tune to who your spouse is and where they're going. That's so important. Stay in tune to who they are and where they're going, because people change.
That's true. That's true. And even, ladies, I know we change, and we used to get caught up with raising the kids, doing the housework, doing everything else. Let your husband know that you don't feel the same way like you used to. Now, I know that that's a mouthful, but he can still think that candy bar was good for you 10 years ago, and it can't do nothing for me. Mm-hmm. Or he might think that, grabbing you a certain weight might be still good, but that don't work no more. You can get so bitter. It's a silent bitter in marriage when nobody tells the person that they are changing. Mm-hmm. And that's why you go look in other places, because you didn't tell them. If you just told me you don't like this anymore, we could have proceeded with that. But nobody said nothing. You just assumed that person would recognize the change, but you didn't say nothing. And nobody can read anybody's mind, but somebody got to say, hey, I have changed. That boat ride we used to do 2 years ago, that ain't working anymore, buddy. I need a speedboat now. Come on now. I need something to make a thrill up in here, because obviously I'm getting bored. And you can get bored in a relationship. You can get bored in a relationship because you do the day-by-day duties, and then you feel like a robot, and you feel like a maid, or you feel like a used person. And that could work both ways. You're like a man, you get into a routine, but spice up the relationship. Even on both parties, and let them know that, hey, I need something different. A movie and dinner is not good enough anymore. Let's go to the theater. Let's do something different. So you got to know the status. Because if you don't know it, it can be dead, and 2 people living in the house and it's dead.
The marriage will suffer.
It
really,
will.
And then
the old school say that, well, we're gonna stay together till the kids grow up, and then we're gonna get divorced. Now, new school don't say that. New school said, we're going to get divorced and we just separate the kids. But the old school would stay with the people until the kids grow up. Then you say, how they get divorced 30 years later? Because they was unhappy 30 years later, and they never said nothing. They just wait till the kids left, and then they decided to get divorced.
So know the status of your marriage. Don't live today with where you were at yesterday. All right? As we said, your spouses, they're not the same person. Some people do that, and that's so important. You can't live, you can't have your marriage today based on what it was 3, 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. Because as we said, people do change. They're not the same person. Person depending on when you met them, they're not the same person as in high school or college or 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And sometimes people do that. They try to live today on how they felt yesterday. And you can't do that. That does not work. So you got to always know the status. You don't have to turn to it. Proverbs 27:23 says, be diligent to know the state of thy flock, to look well to thy herds. Now, we use this verse for a lot of things, but it really applies to anything that involves managing. You know, marriage has to be managed, you know, because it's not going to take care of itself. Sometimes people think that, well, the longer we stay married, it'll just work itself out. That's not true. Marriage has to be managed. I know that sounds like is marriage like business? No. It has to be managed, though, because it's not going to take care of itself. And I really, people do think that, well, you know, especially if they don't confront things, don't deal with issues, well, it'll just roll over, it'll take care of itself, it'll be all right next year. No, it won't. Stuff gets swept under the rug, and maybe you don't talk about it this year, but trust me, the stuff is going to come back, because that rug is going to get lifted, and the problem